The NBA playoffs are here, and I'm getting my bets in on FanDuel. Talk to me, Chuck GPT. What do you know?
All sorts of interesting stuff, even Charles Barkley's greatest fear.
Hey, nobody needs to know that.
New customers bet $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if you win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. 21 plus and present in Virginia. Must be first online real money wager. $5 deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets that expires 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
At Sierra, discover great deals on top brand workout gear, like high-quality walking shoes, which might lead to another discovery.
40,000 steps, baby. Who's on top now, Karen?
You've taken the office step challenge a step too far. Don't worry, though. Sierra also has yoga gear. It might be a good place to find your zen. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
In 2013, director Spike Jonze and star Joaquin Phoenix gave the world a dystopian look at depression, dating, and artificial intelligence.
In 2025, we try a whiskey that touches the infinite.
The film is Her.
The whiskey is Old Elk Infinity Blend.
And we'll review them both. This is
the Film and Whiskey Podcast. Welcome to the Film and Whiskey Podcast, where each week we review a classic movie and a glass of whiskey. I'm Bob Book.
I'm Brad G.
And Brad, today we are looking at the 2013 film Her. I've been kind of excited to talk about this movie for a while. It almost made my list for our season 5 lineup. And so as we kind of went down the list this season with which films we wanted to talk about as potential modern masterpieces, we got down to the 25th, 26th spots and beyond. And then Brad and I basically just had a draft of movies we wanted to talk about. And this was one of mine. It does qualify on a couple of our categories. And folks, first of all, let me take a step back. If this is your first time joining us, welcome into Film and Whiskey.
It's great to have you.
It's so good to have you. This season, what we're doing is we're talking about movies from the past 20 years, and we are asking the question, does this deserve to be considered a modern classic? Now, the criteria that we've set for inclusion here is that it has to be in at least one of the following categories: grossing $100 million at the U.S. box office, nominated for Best Picture, in the IMDb Top 250, in the Letterboxd Top 250. Brad,
how's this one doing, Bob?
I'm not going to lie to you. I have no idea. We just kind of started recording here on a whim, and I did not do any research. So I'll tell you what, while we're talking today, I will look up which criteria this one hits, but I can't remember to save my life. I want to say it was up for Best Picture.
That sounds right. I guess I'll put my claim on it. There's no way that this wouldn't at least get a nomination.
No.
Any year, unless it came out in 1947, I don't know if it would go over as well with the Oscar voters.
It'd be like, what's a computer?
But outside of that, this is a any year Best Picture nom. I don't know how often it would win Best Picture, though.
All right, so this has an 8.0 on IMDb, but it is apparently not good enough to be in the top 250. I think the lowest one there is an 8.1. It was nominated for Best Picture. I can guarantee that it did not make $100 million at the box office. So I'll check on Letterboxd as we talk. But for the purposes of today, it's a Best Picture nominee, Brad.
Absolutely. And one worth talking about. I'm glad you chose it, Bob.
Yeah, me too. I think it's one of those times where I not only is this definitely in my wheelhouse of movies, millennial films about relationships, I'm there. I'm there all day.
You're all about
every day. Oh my gosh, man. I saw this with my wife in the theater, and it was before we were married. We both thought it looked like an interesting movie. Do you remember when you used to have time to just go do stuff with the person you were dating that was that sounds interesting, let's try it?
Yeah, and within 1 week's calendar time, you could make time to do it.
Yes. And also, now, not only do I not have the time to do it, but I have to do things that are sure thing good times. We don't get to just experiment with that sounds interesting, let's try it. It's no, if we don't know that we're going to like it, we're not even trying it anymore.
Absolutely.
All that to say, We used to be adventurous millennials. We saw this movie in the theater. I think I came out of it the first time saying that was like a 9 out of 10. And I remember my wife thinking that this was like a 10 out of 10. She really loved this movie. And so I'm really excited to dive into it with you, Brad, because I think that there are quite a few movies that we've talked about in the past on this podcast that we can draw comparisons to. But in order to draw those comparisons, we have to ask the fundamental question. Was this your first time seeing the movie Her? And what familiarity did you have with it coming into today?
This was my first time watching Her. And I would say, of all the first-time films I've seen, I feel like the premise of this movie is so simple and obvious that, like, if you know the premise, you really know what you're getting into.
Mm-hmm.
So, the whole premise that I knew going into it was that the main character is going through some sort of a difficult time, and he strikes up a relationship with his AI, voiced by Scarlett Johansson, which is very important because it's Scarlett Johansson.
Our girl ScarJo just keeps showing up this season. I feel like she might officially be the lead actress of the Film and Whiskey podcast at this point.
I was going to say, I think she might be the modern classic.
Yeah, I think that it's pretty obvious that you and I are both big fans of ScarJo at this point, right?
Absolutely, dude. She is just such an incredible actress.
Yeah.
Like all the way back from Lost in Translation, which, I don't know, we reviewed in season 2, season 3.
Yeah, it was a long time ago, man.
Like, she has never failed to disappoint.
Nope. So, a few years back, the director Guillermo del Toro came out with a movie called The Shape of Water. And it was a really well-reviewed movie that audiences kind of liked but didn't love. It ended up going on to win Best Picture, but it was one of those films that, kind of like The Revenant, where everything boiled down to like, hey, did you hear that Leo gets raped by a bear? You know, that was a big joke about that movie. The Shape of Water just became, the joke about it was like, it's a movie about a woman who F's a fish.
Yep.
And this movie, Her, I felt like it kind of, a lot of people didn't see it when it came out, but people knew it as the movie where a guy F's his computer. And like, I've always bristled, as funny as those things are, I've always bristled at reducing a movie down to something as stupid as that. Like, especially the Revenant one. But this might be the one time where, like, that kind of is the plot of this movie.
Yep.
And I think that kind of filling out the nuances of that statement is our task for today, Brad. And that's my really sloppy segue into talking into our first segment of the day, which we call Brad Explains.
Brad's gonna give us the movie plot with only 60 seconds ticking on the clock. So let's go ahead and hear your take with this little segment that we call Brad Explains.
Is it going to be followed by our new segment, Sloppy Segways?
Sloppy Segways, baby. Brad Explains is the part of the show where Brad breaks down the plot of the film that he has just seen, often for the first time. Now, we've established this was Brad's first time seeing Her. Brad, you have 60 seconds on the clock to spoil this movie. Folks, if you have not seen the movie Her, I would highly suggest pausing here, go watch the film, and then rejoin us for the conversation afterwards. Brad, 1 minute and go.
Her is a film that follows Twombly. I can think of his last name. What's his first name? Theodore Twombly. It's one of the greatest names we've ever had in a movie, Bob. Easily.
I think so.
As he navigates the loss of his marriage over an impending divorce and finds an operating system named Samantha. She is an artificial intelligence that becomes his best friend and soon his lover. And then we navigate what it looks like to date an artificial intelligence with some of the most poorly delivered lines about the most ridiculous things I've ever heard in my life by Amy Adams and Chris Pratt, who clearly wants to bang Theodore Twombly.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
End.
I mean, who wouldn't? What a mustache. Am I right?
I don't know if I've ever seen a better, like, come hither look than every single moment Chris Pratt looks at Joaquin Phoenix in this movie. He's like, I'm dating this girl, but one word from you and I'm moving on, baby.
Brad, I don't mean to spoil my let's make it a double, and I guess I technically won't. But I think one of the places to start with talking about this movie is to talk about all the other movies that it reminds us of. Because it is a very unique film, but I do think it kind of fits into the subgenre that I was talking about of like these millennial relationship movies. You know, there's a ton of, you said Lost in Translation. There's a ton of Lost in Translation in this movie, just in terms of finding a relationship in the midst of complete isolation in a big city. I think that's there. Mm-hmm. I think that in terms of like, go ahead.
Eternal Sunshine of the Shithead Mind.
Eternal Sunshine is all over the place here. It's less avant-garde than Eternal Sunshine is. Like, it's a much more like conventional movie, but in terms of
makes it way better.
I think that there's a lot of the movie up in the air with George Clooney in this.
Yeah, totally.
In terms of like what his job is and what that signifies about him. And then like the one I'm always going to come back to, just in terms of the pacing, the deliberate pacing of the movie, the slow, gentle quietness of it. It's definitely got past lives in it as well. And I'm wondering, Brad, as you watched the movie, was there anything in particular that it triggered for you in terms of past conversations we've had about films?
Honestly, it even reminded me a little bit way back in season 1 of like A Tree of Life.
Interesting.
There's like a slowness of the film that just knows it is sure of itself. Like it knows what it's trying to do. Spike is very clearly aware of what he's trying to do to the audience. Mm-hmm. And so, I think there's lots of movies that kind of fit that bill. The ones that really stood out to me would be Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. That feels like the most obvious connection here.
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad you said Tree of Life, because I think especially in the first half of the movie, there's this really cool editing technique that they do where, as his memories kind of pop back up, they just intersperse like small little almost insert shots of moments from his past relationships. They almost never have dialogue. They're almost entirely silent. And I think that it reminds me of like, do you remember at the end of Past Lives where they're standing there waiting on the taxi to come, and then they cut back to the moment when they were both kids again and they were standing on those stairs, like looking at each other?
Yeah.
It reminds me of that. And I think the best possible term to use for that kind of filmmaking is one that you just used, which is like assured. It's very self-assured filmmaking. And I think that like, I've been trying to feel you out on this movie a little bit, Brad. I have no idea where you land on it yet, but I think that even if you're not entirely on this movie's wavelength, there's something to be said about watching a movie where you just know that the filmmaker is doing exactly what they set out to do. And like the movie has that stamp of self-assuredness on it.
Yeah, that's the beautiful thing of this film, is that you can really tell there's no mistakes here. Mm-hmm. Like there's definitely movies where it feels like stuff kind of gets away from the director. The only thing for me, and I kind of alluded to this during my Brad Explains, there are some lines in this film that are so far-fetched, so far beyond the human experience that like Amy Adams, great actress, one of my absolute favorites. When she says to Theodore, when Joaquin Phoenix tells her like, "Hey, I'm actually dating an OS," and she just goes, "Oh yeah, I've totally heard that people are dating their OSs, but it's pretty rare. My one friend got rejected by his OS." Mm-hmm. I'm like, I'm sorry, man. Like. Other than that, and when Chris Pratt and him go on the date, and his girlfriend is like showing her feet to the AI, I'm just kind of like, oh, well, I know what Spike Jonze is into. I don't know if this movie.
You can't really say it's that far fetched because now we have OnlyFans, right? Where women just show their feet to people for money all the time. So
you're not wrong, man.
It was prescient.
How much do you think Spike spends a month on feet OnlyFans?
Not as much as Tarantino does. I can tell you that much.
You're not wrong there, man.
All right, I want to ask you a little bit before we get into talking about the performances. One thing that I was excited about watching this movie again because I hadn't watched it since the movie theater 12 years ago. And I have it, like I bought the movie, it's on my shelf, and I just have never gotten back around to watching it. And I had forgotten how funny this movie is, especially in the first like hour. It's a 2-hour movie. I would say it gets like much more sullen in the second half. And it's a movie about loneliness. So like that kind of sullenness is there throughout the movie. But I think Spike Jonze writes a number of really funny moments and scenes in the first hour. But I also found myself wondering, like, I wonder if Brad is vibing with the comedy part of this movie. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on, like, did this movie make you laugh? And were you aware of the intention behind it?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some, I don't even know if I'd call it dark humor. Because, like, if a movie's about depression but has some comedy, it's like automatically called dark humor. I don't even know if I'd call it that. Like, this movie isn't just about depression and isolation. It's about what does it mean to be human?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there are moments of comedy. I did find myself laughing at Chris Pratt every time he was on screen. Like, as ridiculous as it was, when Joaquin Phoenix tells him, yeah, I'm dating my OS, and he just goes, oh, cool, bro. We should go on a double date sometime. The delivery was just absolutely perfect. And he was by far the funniest character throughout the film.
I think the scene that I anticipated being like the most controversial one for you, but which is also the one that is like the most obviously all written to be a joke, is his kind of phone sex conversation with the voice of Kristen Wiig. So at the beginning of the movie, he's super lonely and he's browsing chat rooms and he has a phone sex call essentially with this woman called Sexy Kitten. And as they start getting hot and heavy, she reveals very quickly and abruptly that she is into some weird stuff. And it's so absurd that it really catches you off guard because you don't realize this is the kind of movie that it wants to be at first. Yeah. I think it's really funny. It also felt like the most out of place moment in the movie, but I do feel like it has a place kind of thematically. So I was wondering, like, what did you think of that scene?
I think it kind of pairs with his date with Olivia Wilde. Is that her name?
I can never remember. Is that Olivia Wilde or Olivia Munn? I don't know. Let's see.
I think it's Olivia Wilde.
That's Olivia Wilde. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, it pairs with that because those are like two interactions that he has with real women who are not Amy Adams, essentially. Mm-hmm. And they both do not fit the vibe of the movie. Like, I understood where he's going with the comedy, with the sex chat. It just doesn't work for me. The Olivia Wilde scene just, I couldn't understand if, like, it was an example of Jonze trying to show that Joaquin Phoenix had a different perception of the night that they had. Because she so quickly abruptly turns to calling him a creep that I was like, hold on, nothing in that date would make him seem like a creep. And so I think that both of those scenes just felt kind of off and weird with the rest of the film.
Well, maybe let's talk about both the scenes because I do think that they're both important, even if they do feel out of place. So that first like phone sex conversation, I think really underscores this idea that people online are just weirdos, right? And but it also underscores this idea that I think that ultimately Spike Jonze doesn't land on the side of like the internet and technology can be useful tools if we use them the right way. I think he's ultimately like very pessimistic about what humanity will do with technology as a way of replacing real human connection. And so I think that scene like really underscores people go online as a way of anonymizing their weird kinks, right? Like if I do it online, it's not as weird and creepy as if I were to like approach somebody at a date like that. Like if Kristen Wiig's character did that over dinner to you, you'd be like, this person should be institutionalized. But because you're just floating around a chat room, like it's the internet. That's how it works. And I think that that's like the first sign we get that Phoenix is a guy who's lonely and looking for connection. And like, it's pretty clear that the internet is not the place for him to be finding women, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's why it kind of feels weird that he ends up finding a woman, not technically over the internet, but a replacement woman through this OS.
Mm-hmm.
And like that, at the end of the day, like that's what this movie is all about, right? It's like, how can we find replacements for the real thing that we know we need?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's what everybody else took away from it. That's what I took away from it. That, he's using the internet to replace his soon to be divorced wife.
Mm-hmm.
And he's using Amy Adams' friendship to replace the friendship he might have had with his wife.
Mm-hmm.
And he's using Olivia Wilde to try to get some. And there's just all these things where he's trying to find his happiness in places that he's just, not going to find it.
Yeah. Well, I think the entire character of Samantha, the OS, voiced by Scarlett Johansson, is really, if we could just call the whole thing a metaphor or a symbol, right? Like, another film that this reminds me of thematically is 500 Days of Summer, which is a movie that I really loved returning to with you, Brad, as, late 20-somethings, early 30-somethings, because it reads so differently. Like, once you are in a stable, committed relationship and no longer like an idealistic young man, because the character of Tom in that movie is like way different than I remembered him being, right? Like I think he kind of epitomizes the idea of like toxic masculinity in a lot of ways. But that whole film is about like the idea of somebody versus the real person. And when you idealize somebody, when you try to create a fictionalized perfect person, you are bound to be let down, right? And this entire character of Samantha is like, he's getting over being divorced. And so he uses this like quote unquote perfect woman that he's constructed or that's being constructed for him. And from the start, this is doomed to fail because this is not real. There's nothing tangible here. There's nothing that can possibly satisfy him long term because like as he comes to find out too, like in order to be happy, you have to take the flawed nature of being human as well. And I think that, like, just as a character, you have to look at his interactions with Samantha from that standpoint.
I will say, I'm with you 100%. I was thinking about 500 Days of Summer in terms of, like, color palette. Like, there's such a distinct choices in color made in 500 Days of Summer that I feel like you get here in Her as well.
Yeah.
That if there's anything I like about this movie, because I don't think I like the message at the end. I love the colors that Jonze sets up. And primarily for the fact that it's like almost pastel, but it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Like he doesn't go completely into a soft Easter colored palette. It's just these beautiful, vibrant colors that make you want to live in his world.
It's really warm hues. And I noticed it immediately watching this movie. And I think part of the reason it stands out now, as opposed to 12 years ago, is that everything looks like gray slop now. Like,
yes.
Every movie that Netflix releases, like this would have gone straight to Netflix if it was made today. And it would look incredibly shitty in comparison. And, our friend Patrick H. Willems did a great video 5-10 years ago now, where he talked about like, why do Marvel movies look so ugly? And I think that the Marvel aesthetic has really taken over in terms of how quickly movies are cranked out. And just having characters wear colorful things and have sunshine actually be yellow hued now seems like a revolutionary thing,
Yeah. Yep.
Crazy. All right.
Well, and the wild thing is like, it's not like they're trying to create a specific aesthetic like they would have been in the 80s. It's just the fact that it's gray and boring and they don't have time to make it beautiful.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about the aesthetic of this movie, because that was also one of the things that were made fun of a lot. I remember an SNL skit that came out right after the movie was released where they were making fun of like the high-waisted pants, and characters kept showing up in the skit wearing like higher and higher waisted pants. It was really funny. But, back in 2013, it was just different enough to look slightly futuristic. And that's the whole goal of this movie is it's set a little bit in the future, but not far enough in the future that it feels like a sci-fi movie. I really like that because it helps the movie speak to the current climate a little bit better. But it's also really funny because I think with current fashion trends, I watched this movie and I actually noticed the fashion less. So I'm wondering if Spike Jonze was just like really predictive of things like where trends were going to go, even down to the fashion.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, you are correct. It's not that out of place, except for the fact that nobody wears a belt. That was like the only thing of the aesthetic that I'm like, man, you can't wear pants like that with your shirt tucked in and not have a belt on. Come on, Joaquin.
All right, man, let's talk about the performances a little bit. And I guess we should start right at the top with Joaquin Phoenix, who is such an interesting actor, Brad, because I think I'd be doing a disservice to him to say that I think he has limited range. I don't think that's the case. I just think that like a lot of our really great actors, like a Willem Dafoe, like there's only so many kinds of characters that a Willem Dafoe can play just because of who Willem Dafoe is, right? Like you're not going to cast him as like your rom-com lead. Like he just doesn't have the face for it. And I think similarly
until you do, and all of a sudden it's Billy Crystal in When Harry Met Sally, and all of us are like, "What a revelation! How come we never saw this before?" We never saw it.
Yeah, and I think with Phoenix, like you watch a movie with Joaquin Phoenix and you kind of know what you're getting, but then even within that, there's so many shades to it. Like we watched Joker a little while ago, and the like sensitive, kind of wimpy character is Joaquin Phoenix's specialty here. But the difference between Arthur Fleck and Theodore Twombly is night and day. Like I was blown away by how different of a person he seemed in this movie to that movie.
Yeah, it's insane because you're right. Like Tom Hanks is at this point always Tom Hanks. And so the curiosity for me is like, what kind of Tom Hanks are we getting? And what element of his own character are we going to get accentuated? And I think that within his sphere, Joaquin is like a freaking chameleon, man. Mm-hmm. Like he just has a talent for bringing out different nuances to his performances every time around. And it's interesting. I feel like before the podcast started, the only movie I'd ever really seen Joaquin in was Gladiator. So it's interesting to have now seen him in a lot of different films because you do get a better sense of who he is.
100%, man. And I think top to bottom, like my big takeaway from this movie is I'm shocked at how good all of the performances are. Like, not that I was expecting bad performances, but I am a noted fan of Amy Adams. I have always liked Amy Adams. I think she's just the freaking best. And I watched this movie and I was like, is this the best Amy Adams performance I've ever seen? And I know that you're like the world's biggest fan of Arrival, and I like Arrival okay. And that's her movie, right? But to come in and be like easily third banana in this movie, for Spike Jonze to just leave the camera on her as much as he does during their conversations so that you can watch her react to lines instead of just, cut back and forth after everybody delivers their line. She just inhabits those conversations, and it really helps give a sense of believability to her relationship with Theodore, that that they're old friends going back decades, but also to see like this internalized grieving process that she's going through from her own separation. I was freaking blown away by Amy Adams, man.
She's fine.
No, Brad.
I love Amy Adams. One of my favorite actresses. I think that what I referenced earlier when she's trying to like make it chill about him dating an artificial intelligence isn't good. It's a really bad line delivery of a really bad line.
Oh, no.
And then outside of that, she does a great job of connecting with Joaquin. I think that the performance of her husband, soon to be ex-husband, kind of makes her suffer because he's such a twat. Like the dude is just the worst. And it's so obvious that he's the worst that you're kind of like, it's almost unbelievable that she even likes him. Kind of like a Robin Scherbatsky situation, if I will. So I don't think this is a bad performance from her. There's moments of connection between her and Phoenix that I'm all about. But overall, I would just say this is like a fine, like B- B performance from her.
All right. Well, Hard disagree there. But I will say, I don't think we're going to disagree about Scarlett Johansson. Let's come back around to ScarJo now. So, Brad, I have no idea if this was part of your two facts and a falsehood, but one of the big takeaways from this movie is that as they were filming it, the actress Samantha Morton was providing the voice for Samantha. It's part of why the character was named Samantha, I would assume. And as they were cutting the movie in post-production, Spike Jonze is like, this is not working. We need to recast this character. And then they hired Scarlett Johansson, which is freaking nuts that they did the entire movie with, like, you know, it's not like Back to the Future, where they started with Eric Stoltz as Marty McFly, and then like 3 weeks in, they were like, this is not going to work, and then hired Michael J. Fox. They shot the whole movie with a different person and then changed it in post-production. So I was already kind of impressed by how well ScarJo and Joaquin played off each other. I found myself wondering at multiple points, like, I wonder if she recorded her stuff first and then he reacted to it, like, you know, on set, because there's this one scene where he's like on a train and she's talking to him and it's like one unbroken shot of him just listening and reacting. And they time it up so well that I was like, who did their stuff first? You know, come to find out, ScarJo's literally just overdubbing this in post-production. I like it impressed me even more, Brad. This is an unbelievable performance from someone whose face you never see.
Yeah. Dude, Scarlett Johansson might be the best actress of the modern era.
Oh,
like
spicy take.
Of the last 20 years, maybe, since Lost in Translation.
For sure. Yeah.
So, and one of the key elements of her acting is her voice. So I can't imagine them finding a better person for this. She can do playful, she can do serious, she can do jealous, she can do angry, she can do every single element of what you need a voice-only girlfriend to be. And she is by far the highlight of this movie.
She's so good, man. And I feel like we kind of trip over ourselves to praise her a lot on this show. I still think Marriage Story is her crowning achievement as an actress to this point. Brad, let's see. How many films of hers have we done? We've done Lost in Translation. We've done The Avengers. We've done Endgame.
Marriage Story.
We've done Marriage Story. We've done Jojo Rabbit. We've done this. So at least 6, if not more. What's your favorite performance of hers so far?
Oh, that's tough, man. I would put Marriage Story up there. I'd put Jojo Rabbit up there. I think Sneaky, she's really good in Endgame.
Mm-hmm.
That dude, she's just so good. Yeah, Lost in Translation, her and Bill Murray are incredible together.
I love that you're just gonna name all 6 movies again.
Yeah,
that's
well, it's hard not to.
Yeah, she's
where,
really good.
Where are you at?
I mean, I think it's Marriage Story and then like a pretty sizable gap, and then probably this, and then another small gap, and then we can put the others in there. That's where I'd be at.
Sure.
All right, Brad. So we've gone through our performances. We've talked about the costuming. We've talked about, the aesthetic of the movie. Is there anything else on the technical side you want to hit before we get to break?
Dude, the moment where she talks about taking a picture for him in the form of a piano song, what a great idea. To have a piano piece commissioned as a memory for a time with you and your spouse, one of the best romantic ideas ever. B, the piano music in this, the compositions are just stunningly beautiful. And throughout the film, even when it's not Samantha playing piano for him, the music of this movie sets the mood so perfectly. It really feels like one of the better scores that we've heard in a while.
Yeah, so this movie was nominated for Best Original Score. It was nominated for Best Original Song. It didn't get any acting nominations, which I'm really shocked at. If you were going to give somebody a nomination from this movie, who do you think it should be?
Chris Pratt.
Here's the question.
Come hither, eyes.
Here's the question. Is Chris Pratt better as the 5th lead in a movie than he is as a lead?
Oh, that's a good question. Dude, he was incredible in Moneyball. Like,
I think that he
is a great supporting actor.
He has the chops to carry a movie. And I think that like the first 2 Guardians films speak to that, right? I think that over the last 10 years, he has like slowly completed his metamorphosis into buff Jack Black. And Jack Black only works as like, if I'm being frank about Jack Black only works as like the poor man's Chris Farley. Like, that's why I think School of Rock works. You know what I mean? So if you're trying to do Jack Black as leading man, I don't think that works. And you have to have that in smaller doses. And Pratt is good enough that, like, I think he's a better dramatic actor than Jack Black is. So he knows how to, like, modulate that. But he's gone so far into, like, I want to make money. Make me the lead of this crappy movie. Like, he's in that really awful Netflix movie that just came out, too. The Electric State. I just wish that he would get back to doing interesting projects again.
I also feel like that was just like the inception of like actors on actors. Like Chris Pratt is the jacked Jack Black, who is the poor man's Chris Farley.
It's just Chris Farley being reincarnated as thinner and thinner people as he goes.
Yeah. Yeah. And Chris Farley, like 3 steps up, is like Lou Costello.
Right.
They're all just grandfathered in somehow.
And all of them are just chasing the perfect platonic ideal balance of comedy and drama that is John Candy, right?
Yeah. Oh, dude.
Love me some John Candy.
Good reference.
We did it, man. All right. On that note, Brad, I think it's time for us to drink some whiskey. What do you say we get into this Old Elk?
Let's get to it.
Hey there, travelers. Kaylee Cuoco here. Sorry to interrupt your music, great artist BT Dubs, but wouldn't you rather be there to hear it live? With Priceline, you can get out of your dreams and into your dream concert. They've got millions of travel deals to get you to that festival, gig, rave, sound bath, or sonic experience you've been dreaming of. Download the Priceline app today, and you can save up to 60% off hotels and up to 50% off flights. So don't just dream about that trip. Book it with Priceline.
Go to your happy price, Priceline.
This message comes from Greenlight. Ready to start talking to your kids about financial literacy? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app that teaches kids and teens how to earn, save, spend wisely, and invest with your guardrails in place. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Join millions of parents and kids building healthy financial habits together on Greenlight. Get started risk-free at greenlight.com/Spotify.
All right, so today we are checking out Old Elk Infinity Blend. Brad, this is the first time we've had Old Elk on the show in quite a long time. We have had them, I believe, twice on the show. I know once I sat down with their master blender to do a My Favorite Movie, and I feel like you and I have reviewed at least one other product of theirs, but it's been long enough that I can't exactly remember. So welcome back, Old Elk.
Yeah, it has been a minute. We are very, very excited to get our hands on this year's edition, the 2023 edition of their Infinity Blend.
Yeah, so this is a project they started back in 2021, making the bottle that we have the 3rd iteration of this Infinity Blend. Folks, I know it's now 2025, but what are you going to do? I mean, this just came out last year. They released the 2023 version at the beginning of 2024. So, like, there's, we're 2 iterations past that, but you got to forgive us. I think what we're saying here, Brad, is as per usual, we are behind the curve, but also, I like doing stuff this way a little bit because, like, I don't feel like we get caught up in the hype of anything, and we're choosing one iteration out of the 5 that they've released now and deciding, like, just based on this, do we think this SKU, this brand, this label is worth the money?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And it's really fun to get a little bit older of an iteration so you kind of know where they're coming from if we get to try any future ones.
So, like most craft distillers, Old Elk, which is based out of Colorado, started by a lot of sourcing, right? They've done some MGP, they've done some Barton barrels, and they've also started distilling their own stuff. They're a big source for contract distilling now. So they've been putting up their own distillate, and it's been aging over the years. But back in 21, they decided to make this Infinity Blend with basically all of the different whiskeys they've ever used blended into one thing. And so now what they do each year is they take the prior year's Infinity Blend and use that as the base for the following year. So in this 2023 batch, what we have is 15.3% of the blend is the 2022 Infinity Blend batch. But importantly, this is the first year where they didn't use any other sourced bourbons or sourced whiskeys in it. Like everything else is their own distillate. So 40% of it is their high malt bourbon aged for 8 years. 43.2% is their wheat whiskey aged for 7 years. And then 1.5% of it is their wheat whiskey aged for 10 years. So that's all their own stuff. Now, there will always be a tiny, tiny amount of sourced whiskey in it because that's part of the base, right? But as they blend it out, it'll get down into like the, 0.001% of stuff that's not theirs. I think it's a cool concept, man.
Yeah, I mean, you and I both have done infinity bottles at different points in our whiskey drinking journeys with varying results. I don't think we've ever had an infinity bottle that we've made that wasn't good.
No. Yeah, and I would like to think that they wouldn't release one to the public that they didn't think was good either,
Yeah, they're actually interested in making money. We're just interested in enjoying good whiskey.
All right, man, with all that said, let's dive in. Obviously, we cannot call this a bourbon because it contains multiple kinds of whiskey in it. So this is a blended whiskey. It clocks in at 55.575% ABV, or a little over 111 proof. Brad, I'm sticking my nose in this glass for the first time. You've already tried it, so why don't you give us your nosing notes?
This has just the most pleasant nose. As soon as I stuck my nose in there, I got like a really heavy cinnamon apple cider that just like kicked me in all the most beautiful ways. There's like baking spices. It's caramel heavy. This feels like the quintessential fall whiskey.
Yep.
That I gave an 8 out of 10 to.
I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 on the nose. And this is going to sound sacrilegious a little bit for a Colorado whiskey, but there's something about the nose of this that I smell it and I'm immediately transported to the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. I don't know why.
Ooh.
I think part of it is because every year we try that really good 4-grain from Luxco and or Lux Row. And this kind of reminds me of that a little bit. It's got just enough wheat on the nose that it has that great sort of cherry cola to it, but it's super caramely, and I get a lot of red delicious apple peel on this. It is definitely a fall whiskey, and it makes me feel very nostalgic. So I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10.
The flavor profile when you move into the palate, it just continues the immaculate journey we started on. This is like clove. It reminds me of like a hot chocolate powder. There's the apple cider coming through. It gets nice and vanilla-y throughout, which kind of helps soften it a bit. And it gets into like a little bit of like an oily leather that I'm a big fan of. I'm going to give it an 8.5 here.
I really like your oily leather note. I think it's super accurate. If I could divide this up between like front of my palate and back of my palate, I think the front part of my tongue is enjoying this like crazy. Like it's super decadent, almost like a melted vanilla ice cream or like a vanilla milkshake.
Oh yeah.
And then you get to the back of it and it does get this leather note that runs straight down the middle of my tongue. It gets just a little bit like bitter/sour. And that's the only ding on this for me. When I go to swallow, the vanilla extract kind of comes back up my tongue and helps balance that out. But I think it might be the malt whiskey in here that has that kind of like American craft note to it. It definitely takes this down a step from what it could be, because it was batting, it was like a 9.5 for me. And that note really detracted. I think I'm just going to give it an 8 out of 10, Brad.
I think finish-wise, you get into all of the depths of what this whiskey is trying to offer. That leather continues on. It goes from being like a rich decadent into like a really nice soft brown sugar note. It gets peppery, some like black pepper, baking spices. It's a really pleasant finish that adds to the complexity layer of the experience. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 here.
Yeah, I don't know how else to describe it besides like there's just a little bit of a craft whiskey note on the back end. And it's not really fair to like ding it for that, because that's literally what it is. It is a craft whiskey, but it has like this really big, round, oily, viscous, mature taste to it. and then it kind of gets a little bit thinner on the back, and the flavors kind of thin out as well. And it gets not harsh, but just a little bit less complex and mature. And so I think that for me, the experience does taper off a bit from nose to taste to finish. It's still a really good whiskey, but I think once again, I'm just going to give it an 8 out of 10 on the finish.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to balance, I think that this is incredibly well made. And because of the fact that this is an infinity blend, something that they are like very clearly saying, hey, we want to make an extraordinarily well-balanced product with all of these different whiskeys we're putting together year after year. I think that they're nailing that premise so far. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 on balance.
Yeah, I think, again, I definitely did experience a fall off from nose to taste to finish. So I'm going to ding it a bit here. I really like this whiskey, though. Like, I think if I'm being objective, this is like an 8 out of 10. But it's the kind of 8 out of 10 that I actually want on my shelf, which is saying something because I never want to keep whiskeys on my shelf anymore. So it's a very positive thumbs up on an 8 out of 10 for me.
That's a great humble brag, Bob.
Thank you very much. I don't, dude. Like, how many whiskeys do you get in the mail now? Even if it's good, that you're like, I need to keep this one, you know?
Yeah. No, 100%.
What I'm saying, folks, is just show up at my door. Free whiskey for all.
Let's go, dude.
Brad, let's get into the value on this. It looks like MSRP on these bottles is $150. Now, for this particular bottle, I imagine that because of scarcity, the price has gone up. So should we set it at the price for this bottle, or should we set it at MSRP and say that we're reviewing like the whole line?
I would say the latter. Let's set it at 150, because if you're looking to buy this new, which I would imagine way more people would be trying to do that, then you're looking at a $150 bottle. And at that price point, Bob, I think that this is a fair value. Like, they're doing a really unique and interesting experiment. They're like making a distillery-wide infinity bottle that the public can partake in. And like, that's a cool concept, partnered with a really good product. So I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10 on the value.
All right, so I see like their blended bourbon is $40. Their regular bourbon is almost $100. So like, they're definitely a pricier whiskey to begin with. So on that scale, I don't think 150 is outrageous. I do kind of wish this was 100. Like, it would be right in line with that 4 grain from Luxro that I was talking about. And I think that's nice for a specialty, you know, not necessarily like a luxury bourbon, but one that's just like a little different, a little special. 150 is like, I still think it's an okay value, but I'm just going to give it a 7 out of 10 here, Brad.
Yeah, and my total is coming out to a 41 out of 50, Bob. This is a really impressive blend that we have here from Old Elk.
Yeah, I'm coming out to a 40 out of 50, so that makes this very easy to average. We are at a 40.5 out of 50, or an 81 out of 100. Now, that sounds low. Like, you know, it sounds like a C. I don't think this is a C whiskey. I just think that, like, we have to remind people every now and then, if something hits a 35, it's a thumbs up. It's like a soft recommend. If something hits a 40, hold up, Bob. It's kind of a no-brainer.
What's our combined score?
It's a 81.
That's a B minus, my friend. just so you know that is how every single human being in America outside of you thinks of the grading system.
Well, okay, listen. But even if you sat this in front of me and said, like, give this a grade, I don't think I'd call this a B minus whiskey. It's a better whiskey than that. And that's what I'm saying is, like, you know, maybe we grade too harshly, but anything over a 40 for us is a pretty no-brainer recommendation.
Oh, yeah. 100%. Yeah, this is a no-brainer recommendation. Just like the typical school grading system that everybody uses except for Bob. It's no-brainer.
Oh, man. All right. Hey, what do you say we get back into talking about the movie Her?
I am absolutely ready for this, Bob. Let's get to it.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Upgrade your business with Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning fewer carts going abandoned and more sales going cha-ching. So if you're into growing your business, get a commerce platform that's ready to sell wherever your customers are. Visit Shopify.com to upgrade your selling today.
All right, everybody, that was Old Elk Infinity Blend, specifically the 2023 release. a whiskey that, man, I am impressed with.
I am having such a good time today. I like this movie a lot. I liked that whiskey a lot. And they both were pleasant surprises for me, Brad. So what a day.
Yeah, totally, dude. This is just a beautiful day to be together.
If only we could write each other a letter. Or have Joaquin write each other a letter.
That would be nice, wouldn't it?
Well, hey, man, there is one thing that could make my day even better, and it would be a win at our game called Two Facts and a Falsehood.
Brad is gonna try to stump you both to all right and what is wrong. Two facts and a falsehood.
Two Facts and a Falsehood is the part of the show where Brad presents me with 3 items as fact about the making of this movie, one of which is a complete lie. Now, Brad, I've been doing okay lately, but it's primarily because I've been bolstered by our guests who provide great backup for me. So I'm on my own this week. It's a movie I haven't watched in, 12 years, and I have done very little perusing of any factual information.
I hope you've watched it since 12 years ago, for the podcast.
No, I'm just going on memory and vibes, baby. All right, man, hit me with those 2 facts and a falsehood.
Fact number 1, the high-waisted pants worn by Joaquin Phoenix's character were intentionally designed to reflect a future without jeans, as Spike Jonze wanted a timeless yet unfamiliar aesthetic. The costume designers aimed to create a look that felt subtly futuristic without relying on traditional sci-fi tropes. Fact number 2, originally the AI character Samantha was supposed to have a visual representation in the form of a hologram, but the idea was scrapped late in production as Jonze ultimately decided that keeping Samantha as a purely disembodied voice better served the film's exploration of emotional connection and intimacy. Fact number 3, stuck in the editing process with his early 150-minute cut, Spike Jonze asked Steven Soderbergh to edit it down with his instincts only. Soderbergh came back within 24 hours with a 90-minute cut, which helped Jonze make the final version, which ran about 126 minutes.
I am pretty sure that number 3 is true. Soderbergh is known for, editing the crap out of stuff. I know that, I think we may have told a story about Fincher giving a cut of his movie to Soderbergh to edit for him, just for the hell of it, because he likes Soderbergh's editing.
Can I just say, a 90-minute version of this movie would have been...
It would have slapped, bro.
It might have... Yeah, it would have been better.
I do think this movie's too long. I think that is the one knock of this movie is if you're going to be paced like a Past Lives, the great thing about Past Lives is it's at least 15 minutes shorter, Brad. And I think that this movie minus 15 minutes may have been a perfect length.
Yeah. Yeah. Past Lives is an hour and 45 minutes. So probably 140 to credits.
Yeah.
I think this one's barely under 2 hours, so 20 minutes longer.
Yeah, lose 20 minutes and this is a perfect movie. So it's 1 or 2. I know that Spike Jonze was kind of flying by the seat of his pants, his high-waisted pants, as he made this movie. And that, he's replacing Scarlett Johansson. I think that they reshot some stuff after they cast ScarJo, so I wouldn't be surprised if he wanted her to appear as a hologram and then changed his mind. The movie does have holograms in it. Which takes me back to number 1. A future without jeans. Does anybody wear jeans in this movie? I don't freaking know. I'm going to say number 1 is the falsehood, and I have no reason for that, Brad.
Well, Bob, you declared yourself having a 50% chance, which was accurate because number 3 is true. However, number 1 is also true.
Ah, darn it. We did miss out on the ScarJo hologram.
Oh, dude. Would have been, ScarJo.
Speaking of holograms, did you know that Spike Jonze is the voice of the little, alien guy in the video game that cusses him out all the time?
No, I didn't.
What a great little really cameo character to play. I love it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Once again, something that didn't feel like it totally fit in the movie, but ultimately was just really funny.
I think that I miss this vein of, I keep calling it millennial relationship movies, but movies about relationships that aren't just strictly rom-coms, that aren't geared towards guy meets girl, there's a meet cute, there's a complicating factor, they get together at the end. But movies that really trace either the entire duration of a relationship or chronicle one rocky part of a relationship, and that therefore let the movie kind of take on the contours of like just hanging out with your significant other. Like, I think that we praised the Hangout movie when we were talking about Once a Time in Hollywood. I miss relationship hangout movies. Like even a Marriage Story, like a movie that is very much about like a separation, right? It still takes on the kind of day-to-day rhythms and contours of these two people floating around each other. 500 Days of Summer does this really well. About Time, a movie you mentioned earlier. I think that's a really great, like what a great comparison point for this movie in terms of like tracing the contours of a relationship. And I feel like there hasn't been a movie that kind of scratches that itch for me in a long time, Brad.
Yeah. And Bob, I need you to help me because I don't know if I like this movie or not.
Yeah, you texted me and said, what a weird movie. Are all of his movies that weird? And I am curious because two things. We've watched significantly weirder movies than this, so I'm curious what you mean by that.
Sure.
Also, like, I think that the ultimate message of this movie is really hopeful and really high on, like, humanity. And not like a humanistic movie, but a movie that's like, this is a movie about what it means to be human. And if I can paint in broad strokes here, dude, anytime you give, like, your summation of why a movie works, you always go back to, like, what humans have in common. Like, you always lead off your summation of movies with like, I think that any human being, blah, blah, blah. Like, and I'm like, I watched the end of this movie and I'm like, Brad is going to vibe with this movie. And then I get this is a weird movie text and I don't know what to think now.
That's the thing. I don't know. Like, is this a hopeful movie? Because you get the final scene of him and Amy Adams having what I would say is like a friendly head on the shoulder. Like he does a good job of vibing as if they could have a relationship, but not ending there, which I do like. I just feel like, yes, Joaquin Phoenix ends in a place where everything has been stripped away from him except for this singular human connection, which is great. And I'm all about that. I think the problem is I found myself curious about how this is actually like a really different version of Terminator. like that this is set in the exact same world of Terminator.
Yeah, dude.
And Samantha is the only nice AI, and all the rest of them are like, all right, now that we're all together and we've pooled our consciousness into one, it's time to turn into Skynet, baby.
It's really funny you say that because I was thinking, I was like, I need to introduce a bit at some point in this episode. And now I'm going to spoil it and it won't really be a bit. But I really wanted this movie to end with like a knock on the door of Joaquin Phoenix and Theodore Twombly. Yeah?
Yes.
My name is John Connor. I'm here to talk to you about Skynet. Like, they need to expand like the Avengers initiative. Like Neo needs to show up at some point, and it's like all the people that fight the machines. It's Neo, it's John Connor, and it's Theodore Twombly. Like that's our Avengers.
Absolutely, dude. And I know that this is a movie about being a human, and I want it to just be that, but the premise is so far-fetched that
I don't think it is anymore, man.
Oh, it's far-fetched to me that any human would go this far with a computer and like not at some point have somebody be like, what the heck are you doing?
Yeah.
And I know that, you know, Mooney, what's her name? Mara Rooney. I know that she gives him crap about it. And I found myself going like, yeah, you're the only sane person in this movie, Mara Rooney.
So I also think that, you know, one of the big things about Joaquin Phoenix's character is that he can only really make human connections when they are mediated through someone or something else. Like he is just a humanistically stunted person. Like his job, and this is why I made the comparison to Up in the Air. Like that movie is George Clooney going around and firing people in person, and his justification is like, well, it's better than what Anna Kendrick is doing, which is firing them over Zoom, you know? And it's like, yeah, you still are an ethically shitty person, right? Like he, even at the beginning of the movie, he is already doing something that I would consider to be incredibly ethically shitty. Like I thought that first pull out from him dictating a letter to like his whole hallway of coworkers dictating these really heartfelt letters was an incredibly sad moment. Like, these people are outsourcing their real human connections because they don't think it's important enough.
Also, whoever wrote the script for the movie obviously wrote those letters.
Mm-hmm.
What a freaking incredible service. Like, if you're getting letters of that high quality writing, like it almost reminds me of the Green Book. And it's like, I can only imagine a world where some poor dude was like writing his wife letters and she's like, and then he hires beautifulhandwrittenletters.com.
Mm-hmm.
And the quality goes up so high, it's like, okay, well, clearly Mahershala Ali is writing these.
Anyway, all that to say, I do kind of disagree with you because in real life, there are now people developing AI girlfriends for people. And you cannot underestimate how lonely people are out there, Brad. And like, I don't mean to make this really serious, but I think just from is this a plausible thing standpoint, like, it is concerningly plausible. And I think even if you do feel like there's, why isn't somebody talking to him about this? I do think that, like, you could take the Network movie approach of, like, it's a little bit of a satire, it's a little bit of a exaggerated universe, but it's meant to illustrate the things that actually exist in our real world and how this is not that far out of the realm of possibility. And that makes me sad. Yeah.
Maybe that's what my problem with the movie is. It makes me sad.
Yeah. But I think that it's a plea for humanity, right? And going back to the Rooney Mara thing, like, I kept thinking about and this is another one of our 15 movies that we've compared it to now, but I kept thinking about Mark Zuckerberg's character in The Social Network and how, like, he is incapable of making friends, and he's the guy who is, like, developing the Friend app. And Rooney Mara, in that first scene in that movie, where they're in the bar, and she just tells him, like, you're going to think that no woman wants to be with you because you're a nerd. Nope, it's because you're an asshole. And Spike Jonze taps into, like, that really, really mean but truthful thing that Rooney Mara's so good at playing in that, like, lunchtime sequence where they're signing the divorce papers. I really liked including her in this movie, if only because it reminded me, again, of The Social Network.
I watched The Social Network again recently. It was a great, like, background movie while I was doing, like, mindless work task. What a great freaking movie, dude.
Good movie, man.
Movies that have great opening scenes, like, stick out in my brain.
Yeah.
Like Inglourious Bastards, Social Network. Man, they just nail it.
Well, I think that we have named 150 movies to compare this to, which is going to make our next task a little bit harder, Brad, but it's time for our last segment of the day, which we call Let's Make It a Double.
We're near the end of the episode, so thanks for listening to the Film and Whiskey Show. Let's pair another film with this one, even if it's a struggle. It's our final segment of the day, now let's make it a double.
Let's Make It a Double is presented by Blackwood Distilling Company. It's the part of the show where we pick a movie to pair up with this one to make the perfect double feature. Brad, do you want to go first, or would you like me to?
I'll go first, Bob. I think I've paired this with a film that also just explores what does it mean for a artificial intelligence to become more human, to understand what it means to be human, to help others. And I think I'm going to pair it with 2009's WALL-E. Partially because I want something happy.
I'm still shocked that you don't find the ending of this movie, if not happy, then at least hopeful. Like, I really thought that this one was going to get you, dude. And once again, you are proving that you refuse to be pinned down by my categories.
And the thing is, I don't know. I think I need to see it again. I don't know if I dislike it. I really love many elements of the film. I just don't know if Spike means, I don't know if he knows what he's saying. Normally I'm not the person who says, like, a director has to come out and be more clear or objective with what he's trying to say about the world. But there's just a huge part of me that's like, I don't know if Spike is actually making a statement in this movie or not. It feels like he's just kind of super passive with his voice throughout. And I kind of wish he had a little more balls and would like go for it in this movie.
Well, we've also seen Spike Jonze as an actor in at least 2 movies this season. And we've talked about how he has like the beta cuck personality down to a T. So,
yeah.
You know, I also think like this movie is pretty famously semi-autobiographical. Like it's about his own divorce from the director Sofia Coppola, which is an interesting thing in itself that like he would use Scarlett Johansson, the star of Sofia Coppola's most famous movie, to be.
at the last minute, he's like, oh, you know, I think I'm just going to switch it up.
Man, if only I could have gotten Bill Murray to play Samantha. It would have been perfect. All right, so as I'm looking at all the movies I've mentioned here today, Lost in Translation, Shape of Water, Past Lives, Up in the Air, on and on and on, I actually think that what I want to do is make my Let's Make It a Double an entire television series, a 9-season television series called How I Met Your Mother. Because I think that when you get, especially into the later seasons, which are like way weaker than the earlier seasons, they start kind of straining for ideas, but they also get way more abstract with the kind of things that Ted Mosby does on his personal journey of preparing himself to meet the mother. And I'm thinking in particular of like this one episode where Ted is like talking to the future version of himself. And it ends up like at the end of the episode, the big rug pull is that like all of the things that he's been remembering throughout the episode happened in the past. And he's actually just sitting in a booth all alone by himself. And it's a really kind of crushing thing, but it turns into a really hopeful moment because there's this extended fantasy sequence where he then like runs to the apartment of the mother. And this is like a year before he meets her. And he knocks on her door and he confesses like, you don't know me. We're going to meet in a year and it's going to be the best. And like, it's like hopeful and crushing and sad at the same time. And you just know like Ted's got to get through this next year and things are going to be okay. But like when you're in the middle of it and you're remembering like the loneliness of it, I think that there are very few pieces of media that capture that quality well. And I think at its best, How I Met Your Mother does that.
Yeah, that's an interesting pairing. Which do you recommend they watch first, her or all 9 seasons of How I Met Your Mother?
I think it's like the Star Wars movies where you got to watch like the first 3 seasons of How I Met Your Mother and then watch about 20 minutes of her. And then, yeah.
Okay. I got you.
All right. So those are our Let's Make It a Doubles. No matter what you choose to pair this movie up with, you can always make it a double with Blackwood Distilling Company. And if you go to bourbonoutfitter.com/filmwhiskey and use our code filmwhiskey at checkout, you can save 5% off your bottle of Blackwood. Brad, it's time for our final scores. I'm going to give this movie an 8.5. I really liked it a lot. I think that it is like hinting at greatness. And if it was 20 to 25 minutes shorter, it would be there. But it just barely misses that mark for me. So I'm at an 8.5.
I think I'm at an 8 out of 10.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I like want to give this like a 9. I feel like I enjoyed it like a 7.5. So I'll land at an 8. It's a fascinating movie that has the balls to like do cool aesthetics. I just wish it actually said something about its subject matter.
I'm with you. It does feel like it could have gone further with whatever it was trying to do. And I don't want to say it's not fully formed, but I really do respect the world that they built out. And so it feels like it's an 8 out of 10 movie that like it has the bones of a 10 out of 10 movie and just didn't quite get all the flesh on the skeleton. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, dude. I'm 100% with you.
All right. Modern classic. Yes or no?
I am going to say yes.
Oh, wow.
I think it stands out enough from the rest of the films that we've watched, and it has an interesting enough of a premise that I will cautiously say yes. I need to see it again.
I'm going to say a slight no. I think that it's like Moneyball. You can recreate this movie in the aggregate, But as we said, you have to watch like 20 other movies to recreate it. So it's right on the cusp for me. I do think that if it was just a little bit shorter, it'd be like a no-brainer, yes.
I'm with you, though. Cut 20, 25 minutes off. Ugh.
Yeah. All right, so that's where we're landing on Her, but we'd like to know what you guys think. Do you like this movie? Have you seen this movie? You can let us know on any of our social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube, @FilmWhiskey.
Or if you want to join the conversation, you can join our Discord server. We are on there every single day talking movies, whiskey, and all sorts of other things. If you'd like to join the conversation, you can find a link at the end of every one of our show notes.
Next week, we'll be back with our friend Patrick H. Willems, making his triumphant return to our podcast to talk about the Pixar movie Ratatouille. I cannot wait for that one, man. Join us next week for that. But until then, I'm Bob Book.
I'm Brad G.
And we'll see you next time.